Okay. We hear in the gospel today, he was amazed at their lack of faith, and that no prophet is without honor except in his native place and among his own kin. That is absolutely true, by the way. Most priests will confirm that. Our lesson today comes by way of G.K. Chesterton, one of our great Catholic thinkers of recent history. One thing that Chesterton said is that the people who are most against the message of Jesus, they're generally not the people far away that barely know who Jesus is. The people most antagonistic toward Jesus' message are actually the ones that are fairly close to him, familiar with him, but missing the core concept, you know? And that is what these townsfolk of Nazareth fell into in terms of just traps of understanding. They were close enough to Jesus in that they knew him as a fellow, townsperson, but they didn't really know him as Savior and Redeemer. So, here's one way you can think about it. There are three tiers to having a relationship with Christ. First, you've got the outer area. That's everybody who doesn't know Christ. They never met the guy. Then you've got the middle zone, the people that kind of know Jesus, but not really. And then what I'm calling the bullseye is people who know Jesus through and through. So in the Bible, people I would place in the outer area would be Zacchaeus, the tax collector. He climbs the tree trying to get a shot at Jesus. And I would say most people that are healed or exorcised by Jesus would be in the outer area. For the most part, Jesus heals people and they don't know who he is until after. The bullseye is pretty easy. That's Mary, Joseph, Peter, Mary Magdalene, John the Baptist. Okay? These people are friends of Jesus. They would essentially do anything for him. The middle zone, the tricky one, I would say would be the Pharisees, Judas, the rich young man, and maybe doubting Thomas. Although, to be fair, I would put doubting Thomas, I'd level him up into the bullseye. He's kind of a, his own category, in a way. Anyway, so he's neither here nor there. But, the middle zone is kind of where the problem lies. It's when people fail to understand the real Jesus because they somehow understand a partial Jesus. The Pharisees are a pretty good example of that. They knew what Jesus was doing, but they didn't know why. And the townsfolk in our gospel today, they know Jesus. He's that kid that grew up on the other side of town, but they don't know him as the Son of God. So that's the issue of the middle zone. Now, for us today, these three tiers are absolutely still in effect. The outer area is for people who don't know who Jesus is. They have no clue what Christians believe. They've never met one before. The middle zone are the people who know Jesus, but not really. They're the kind of people that say, it's just church. It's not that important. If I need to work on Sunday, I'm going to work on Sunday. God will understand. And then the bullseye are the people who have fallen in love with their Savior. Okay? These are the people who go to Mass when on vacation. They have overcome the temptations of life. They become priests, deacons, monks, and nuns. And on a parish level, these are our workhorses. They volunteer at events. They lecture, sing, serve at Mass. They do all sorts of these things, and we can count on them as a parish because they value their faith. The people I enjoy talking to the most, people in the outer area. Very young children or unbaptized adults who have sought me out looking to potentially become Catholic. For the most part, they had some sort of experience in their life, they made the conscious decision that they want to try out this whole religion thing, and they looked me up. When that happens, those conversations are so thrilling because they know nothing. It's a blank slate. We get to start from square one, and that is so exhilarating. One of my great joys as a priest is being able to share with people Genesis chapter 1 for the very first time. I don't mean explain Genesis chapter 1 to someone who kind of has heard the story before and all that. No, I mean someone who has never heard the story of God making heaven and earth in 6 days. It's revolutionary. It is radical. It's the first page of the Bible, and it was written for them. It was written for people to get a quick idea of who God is when they've never heard of him before. I picture Jews, back in the day, just walking up to people, oh, hey, you're from Mesopotamia. That's interesting. I'm a Jew. I live just on the outskirts of Jerusalem. Here, read this. This explains how we see the world differently than your culture does. And it explains how our God is so much more than your local gods. I'm telling you right now, this outer area, it is such fertile ground for faith. It just needs to be planted. So that brings us to the middle zone. Who's in the middle zone? Teenagers, young adults, people who are Catholic because their parents are Catholic, but they never had a real experience of Christ on their own. So these aren't bad people. These aren't unintelligent people, very much the opposite. They're people who have dabbled in religion. They're people who have been exposed to religion, but they've never really been swept away by the glory and love of God. And yeah, for someone in that category, I imagine coming to Mass does feel like a chore. And that religion feels like one more thing to worry about in addition to everything else the world is forcing us to worry about. It's one more thing on your plate. And we have a ton of people right now in the middle zone because we live in a country that is remarkably Christian. Now, most of the time that is a very good thing. We have so much to be grateful for, don't get me wrong. However, it also means that it's kind of easy for someone to ignore Jesus. It's kind of easy to forget how special a church is when you pass like 6 of them on the way to work every single day. It creates the illusion that Christ is ordinary when he's anything but. And frankly, this is one of our great challenges as a church, certainly in this era, but in many eras of history, because we don't want people to stay in the middle zone for their entire lives. The whole idea is we want as many people to move into the bullseye. We want people to love and cherish their faith. That's the whole idea. And it is a challenge. It is a challenge. So I'm going to end with some practical advice, and then we'll call it a day for today. If you are in the bullseye, I encourage you to find a way to share that love of God that you have. So, speaking on behalf of St. Joe's in Wauwatosa, this is a typical parish. We need more lectors, servers, choir members, and catechists, because those ministries need to be replenished constantly. We need new blood and fresh faces. It's not supposed to be the same few people doing everything year in, year out for like 20 years. That's not the idea. We should all be contributing to those basic ministries. So again, if you have the love of God in your heart, I encourage you to share that in some official way. Give your local church a call. They'll find a good job for you. But you should definitely do something if you're in the bullseye. If you're in the middle zone, I understand. I was in the middle zone too for a while. Not very long, I'll admit, but I know how it feels. If you have never had a true experience of Christ before, don't worry, you're in the right place. If you come to a Catholic church, even once in a while, because when you come to Mass, you will be surrounded by dozens of people who have discovered something amazing and beautiful that you yourself have not seen yet. And they will be delighted to aid you in your spiritual journey once you begin the move from the middle zone to the bullseye. Because that step is all about you. No one and nothing can substitute for that. Case in point, my grandfather was my confirmation sponsor. He wanted me to be a priest ever since I was in grade school. My grandfather, I believe, was born in the bullseye. He may have literally been born in church. I'm not sure about that. I wouldn't be surprised. And he waited for me. He waited for me when I was in the outer area. I was just a kid, happy to be a kid. And he waited for me when I chose to study physics instead of theology. He didn't love me any less when I entered my I don't want to go to church phase. And he was there for me when I snapped out of it and when I realized that the world without Christ can offer me nothing but smoke and mirrors. When I was ready to move into the bullseye, I had my guide and mentor all set to go. When you come to a church, those sorts of people are all around you. That's the beauty and the advantage of a community of faith. But the step to go out of the middle zone into the bullseye is yours and yours alone. So, keep your eyes peeled, keep an open mind. The next step you take might be the most important of your entire life. And for all of us, regardless of where exactly we are on our spiritual journey, let's be careful and not be like the townsfolk of Nazareth who only saw Jesus as a neighbor. Let's never settle for a partial understanding of Christ, but rather let us rejoice, celebrate, and love the whole and totality of Christ, for he is the very center of the bullseye, and he's waiting for all of us to join him there.